Dear members of the media, over the last 6 months, the Israeli military campaign has brought relentless death and destruction to Palestinians in Gaza, with more than 32,000 people reportedly killed and more than 75,000 injured, the vast majority women and children. Lives are shattered. Respect for international humanitarian law is in tatters. During my visit to the Rafah crossing 10 days ago, I met veteran humanitarians who told me categorically that the crisis and suffering in Gaza is unlike any they have ever seen. Meanwhile, as I saw on my way to the Rafah crossing, long lines of trucks loaded with humanitarian aid continue to face obstacle after obstacle. When the gates to aid are closed, the doors to starvation are opened. More than half the population, over 1 million people, are facing catastrophic hunger. Children in Gaza today are dying for lack of food and water. This is incomprehensible and entirely avoidable. Nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. I'm also deeply troubled by reports that the Israeli military's bombing campaign includes artificial intelligence as a tool in the identification of targets, particularly in densely populated residential areas, resulting in a high level of civilian casualties. No part of life and death decisions which impact entire families should be delegated to the cold calculation of algorithms. I've warned for many years of the dangers of weaponization artificial intelligence and reducing the essential role of human agency. AI should be used as a force for good to benefit the world, not to contribute to waging war on an industrial level, blurring accountability. In its speed, scale, and inhumane ferocity, the war in Gaza is the deadliest of conflicts for civilians, for aid workers, for journalists, for health workers, and for our own colleagues. Some 196 humanitarian aid workers, including more than 175 members of our own UN staff, have been killed. The vast majority were serving UNRWA, the backbone of all relief efforts in Gaza. Others include colleagues from the World Health Organization and the World Food Programme, as well as humanitarians from Doctors Without Borders, the Red Crescent, and just a few days ago, World Central Kitchen. An information war has added to the trauma, obscuring facts and shifting blame. Denying international journalists entry into Gaza is allowing disinformation and false narratives to flourish. We honor all humanitarian workers who have been killed in this conflict and pledge to remember their commitment and sacrifice. Following this week's appalling killing of 7 humanitarian workers from World Central Kitchen, the Israeli government has acknowledged mistakes and announced some disciplinary measures. But the essential problem is not who made the mistakes. It is the military strategy and procedures in place that allow for those mistakes to multiply time and time again. Fixing those failures requires independent investigations and meaningful and measurable changes on the ground. In the aftermath of this tragedy, the United Nations was also informed by the Israeli government of its intention to allow a substantial increase in humanitarian aid distributed in Gaza. I sincerely hope that these announced intentions are effectively and quickly materialized, because the situation in Gaza is absolutely desperate. Dramatic humanitarian conditions require a quantum leap in the delivery of life-saving aid, a true paradigm shift. I repeat my urgent appeals for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages, the protection of civilians, and the unimpeded delivery of humanitarian aid. Last week, the Security Council called for just that. And in December, the Council demanded accelerating the delivery of life-saving aid under a UN mechanism. All these demands must be implemented. Failure would be unforgivable. 6 months on, we are at the brink of mass starvation, of regional conflagration, of a total loss of faith in global standards and norms. It is time to step back from the brink, to silence the guns, to ease the horrible suffering, and to stop a potential famine before it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you. E.D. Letter.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. You've said there should be an independent investigation. What can the United Nations do to promote such an investigation?
Well, it is obviously for the government of Israel to accept the possibility of that independent investigation, because the investigation can only work with the cooperation of the Israeli authorities. But as I said, the question is not this only specific incident. 196 humanitarian workers have been killed, and we want to know why each one of them was killed.
Gabriel.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Gabriel Elizondo from Al Jazeera English. Sir, the Israeli government seemed to indicate that they would only open the Erez crossing temporarily. Are you satisfied with that?
We don't know yet what kind of measures will be announced entirely. It is obvious that, as I said, it's not enough to have scattered measures. We need a paradigm shift. We will see if it comes, and after that, we will pronounce ourselves.
Talal.
Thank you. Talal Haj from Al Arabiya. Mr. Secretary General, we have been grown accustomed to straight talk without fear or favor in this United Nations of Antonio Guterres. On the 25th of March, when 2728 was endorsed by the Council with the abstention of the United States, we heard statements from high officials in the United States, including the National Security Council and the White House, that this resolution is non-binding resolution. This really concerned thousands and I could say millions of people in my region. Can you put the matter to lay and please clarify to us whether the Security Council resolutions are binding or non-binding? And another point, quickly, today Israel has fired 2 low-level officers and reprimanded some high officers for the bombing of the World Central Kitchen. Is that enough?
Well, first of all, the Secretary General is guided by the Charter, and the Charter is clear in Article 25. Please read Article 25, and you will be perfectly aware of the nature of the resolutions of the Security Council. And the second, as I said, the question is not only to know if some mistakes were committed and who committed them. The question is the system that allows those mistakes to happen time and time again. And it is the change of that system that is required, which implies a change in the strategy and the procedures that the military are using in Gaza.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.